All right, example 2. We've got x to the 1/2 minus 5 x to the 1/4 plus 6 equals 0. If I look at that middle term and I look at the variable part x to the 1/4, if I were to square that, I would get x to the 2/4, which is x to the 1/2, which is what I have for my first term. So this is an equation. It's not a polynomial equation, right? Because polynomials have to have integer exponents. But it's an equation in quadratic form. And our u is going to be the thing that I had to square, which is the x to the 1/4. Okay, so you have to notice that. So now I could put the u in, but I just decided everywhere I would put a u, I just put x to the 1/4. This is just to show you this is an option. You could just rewrite the original equation as u squared minus 5u plus 6 equals 0 and solve it. That's really what I'm doing. I'm just, every time I see x to the 1/4, I'm just imagining it's u. Right? And I just factored that because the initial one factored. See? So that's just another way of doing this. Yeah, you could think of it as putting x to the 1/4 there instead of x, or you could think of it as doing that instead of u. It depends on what you mean by that sentence. Put it there instead of something. If it was x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0, then you'd have an x there instead of x to the 1/4. If you're thinking of it as u squared minus 5u plus 6, you would put a x to the 1/4 there instead of a u. Right? But anyway, so I just solve each of these for x, which means first I solve for x to the 1/4. So I get x to the 1/4 is 2, and x to the 1/4 is 3. And then I just raise both sides to the 4th power on both of them. And the first one, I get x is 16. And the second one, I get, right, x is 81. 3 to the 4th is 3 squared. So it's 9 squared, which is 81. I didn't do 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, and then try to multiply that by 3. That's not the best way to do it. Okay, I'm going to check my answers. I take 16 and plug it in the original equation. This one up here. So I have the square root of 16. That's what 1/2 power means, right? Square root. And then I have the 4th root of 16, which is the square root of the square root. And I have the 6. The 4th root of 16 is 2, because 2 to the 4th is 16, right? The square root of 16 is 4. So I get that. And that gives me 10 minus 10. Remember, I put the positives together. It's just a easy way to do this. You put the positive terms together, you get 10 minus 10 is 0. So you could do that. You don't have to write all these checks out. You can check it out in your head, and then if it doesn't work, then write it out. And then if it doesn't work, then find your mistake. Or check your check. 81, also easy because it's also a perfect 4th. It's 3 to the 4th, 9 times 9. So square root of 81 is 9, 4th root of 81 is 3. And I get 15 minus 15 is 0. So that checked too. Okay, last example of these, and then we have the next video is on a different topic. Same section though. Okay, so this one's a little more obvious, I think, that it's an equation of quadratic form. The thing to notice is that you have x squared plus 7 in two different places, and the first one is squared and the second one is not, so that you recognize that this is an equation in quadratic form, because if you just follow a previous instinct and just multiply everything out first, you'll have a fourth degree equation and you might not be able to solve it at all. So don't do that. Yeah, this is in quadratic form. Your u here, u is x squared plus 7. So it's u squared plus 8u plus 12 equals 0. Right? So here I would actually just put the u in, because the u is, well, I guess I didn't. I should have just put the u in because the u is more complicated. But again, I guess because maybe I'm using colors, and so it's easy to see that x squared plus 7 as a u. But notice I did write down what u was first. But I probably should have just written out u squared plus 8u plus 12 and then gone back. I guess when I do these, I'm paranoid about not going back to u again. You know, so maybe you want to try it both ways and see which way you tend to make more mistakes on, and then, or get confused, and then don't do it that way. Do it the way that's easier for you. Anyway, I did this. But if this confuses you, put the u in first. Okay? This is just basic algebra here. Now you use the square rule thing. So x equals plus and minus square root of negative 13, and x equals plus and minus square root of negative 9. They're both pure imaginary numbers, actually. Right? There's no real part. So I got 4 answers. Not too surprising. If you look at the original, if you did multiply it out, right? If you did multiply this out, you would have a fourth degree polynomial, right? So you expect 4 answers at most, and we actually got 4. Okay. Now I'm going to check my answers. If it was like 5 plus or minus square root of 13i, I might not want to check it unless the 5 canceled out easily. But these are pretty easy to check because you're just squaring this kind of stuff. So what I did is first I actually calculated u, and then I'll just plug in what u is. You see, u is x squared plus 7, and so I just plugged my solution into x squared plus 7, and you got the I squared is minus 1, and the plus or minus square root of 13 squared is 13, and so I got minus 13 plus 7, which is minus 6. You can put in more steps than that. I'm just checking it, and when you're checking it, you know, you can skip what steps you're really clear on, and I happen to be clear on those. Maybe you write out more steps when you're checking it. That's perfectly fine. Now, what is this? It's the same kind of thing. I squared the plus or minus 3i. I got, wait, what did I do? Oh, I found the u again. U squared plus 7. So, that's negative 9 plus 7 is, wait, what did I do? Well, it worked out. I don't want to think about it too much. You just plug it in and you see if it works. Right? Just be careful when you're checking that you don't check it wrong. Okay? And then I tried the other solution, which is the plus and minus. That was the 13i. I'm sorry. I was thinking I was doing the 3i, but I wasn't yet. That's why I always write down which one I'm calculating before I go, right? So I wrote down x equals plus and minus square root of 13i. Usually I would underline that and put a colon there and then compute. But for some reason I didn't, and it kind of threw me off. I started thinking I was using the other one, the plus or minus 3i. See? Got a little confused because the way I wrote it down. I did put the little arrow, but I don't know. I like the colon with the underline better. So I'm still checking the second two, and you see I'll get 0. Okay? So that's quadratic equations of quadratic form. And then the next thing is still in this section, but it's solving rational equations. So should definitely watch that carefully.